Hello and welcome to time series forecasting. In this video, I'm going to talk about what to read in a regression output in any statistical program, and in particular what to read in a regression output that you will get from R. We are regressing a multiple linear regression model of the form where we are regressing a variable yt on a bunch of x variables, and we may have kxt variables on the right hand side, and then we have an error term or residual here. So we are regressing this regression model. The first thing you need to read may be the value of r squared, and remember, from r squared we know the variation in yt, which is explained by all these explanatory variables, x variables. And from this we know that how well these explanatory variables x1 up to xk are explaining or predicting the variation in our variable of y. The more variation these variables are explaining in y, the better it is, the better will be our predictions about yt. That's why you should always look for r squared in the regression output. And then probably the most important thing that we need to read in a regression output are these coefficient values. So remember, beta 0 shows you the value of yt when all these x variables are set to equal to 0. So this intercept will show you this impact. And then we may be interested in the impact of each of these x variables on y. For example, this beta 1 coefficient, it shows the impact of x1 on yt, and beta k shows the impact of kth x variable on yt. Now, when you will estimate a regression model, each of this slope coefficient will show you three types of relationships between x and y. The first will be the direction of the relationship between variable x and variable y, and it will be shown by whether each of these estimated beta coefficient it is positive or negative. If it is positive, it is showing you that if x increases, y increases. On the other hand, if this coefficient value is negative, it shows that when x increases, y decreases. So this is the first thing that you need to observe from each of these slope coefficients. And then you need to know the actual value of each of these coefficients. For example, if the value of beta 1 is 3, it is showing you that if x1 increases by 1 unit, y increases by 3 units. So the magnitude or the extent of the relationship will be shown by these actual beta values. Now, after you read that, you also need to know whether, apart from the direction and the extent of the relationship, is there a statistically significant relationship between each x variable and y variable. For example, you have to know whether x1 has any statistically significant relationship between y or not, and you can read this by looking at the t-values in the regression output table, and if the t-value is greater than 2, you can conclude that x is a statistically significant determinant of yt, that x is a good predictor. On the other hand, if the t-value is less than 2, you can conclude that x has a statistically insignificant impact on y, and it is not probably a good predictor of y. You can also read the p-values, and if the p-value of any of these coefficients is less than 0.05, you will again conclude that x is a good predictor and it has a statistically significant impact on y. And if p-value is greater than 0.05, then x probably is not a good predictor of y. Then you can also see whether all these x variables x1 up to xk jointly have any statistically significant impact on y by looking at the f-test value. Okay, so let's look at an example, and this is a multiple linear regression model. So let's read the value of r squared, again it is explaining the variation in our dependent variable, which is explained by all of these explanatory variables. And then this intercept parameter, it is showing us the value of consumption when all of these four variables are set to equal to 0. And then for the slope coefficients or estimates, here we need to read three things. And from these coefficients, we can conclude that the relationship between income and production with consumption is positive. On the other hand, the relationship between unemployment and savings with our dependent variable consumption is negative. So this is the direction part of it. That is, when income and production increase, consumption increases. When unemployment and saving rate increase, consumption decreases. Then we can also read what is the magnitude of this relationship, and that magnitude is shown by these coefficient values. And income has a larger impact on consumption as compared with production. Similarly, unemployment has a greater negative impact on consumption as compared with savings, as shown by these coefficient values. Then we can read these t values and conclude that income has a statistically significant impact on consumption. Similarly, savings and unemployment has a statistically significant impact. We can look at the t values as well, these p values or probabilities. We see that the p-value here is below 0.05, but here for the case of production, the p-value is about 0.07, and also t-value is less than 2. So we can conclude that probably production is not a very good predictor of consumption. And then we can look at the f-stat value, and f-stat value is statistically significant as the p-value is less than 0.05. So we can conclude that at least one of these variables is statistically significant. So these are some of the important things that you should read from our regression output. All right, I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.